This is Dr. Fox. Thank you all for your continued support for CRPN and CRPN Central. For more information about our mission, please contact us today at info@crpaynet.com for details.
Hey, I think it's time we had a conversation. Your productivity has really dropped below the company threshold. You're missing deadlines, you're not completing assignments as I've requested. I think we really need to address your performance and productivity.
I'm doing what I can. My workspace is right over lighting that is distracting me, and it's right next to the loading dock's loud noises. I completed your assignment with all the information you requested, but I had to translate it into a format that I could...
Look, I don't see any of the other employees having these problems, and they're twice as productive as you are. Why should I give you a special treatment?
I'm neurodivergent. I have a hard time focusing on my work with these kinds of distractions, and I can complete these tasks just fine, but I need to work with them in a different way of organization.
Neurodivergent or not, if you can't follow the rules and regulations and instructions that are required for this position, maybe this isn't a good fit.
You do know that being neurodivergent in a workplace is protected by the ADA, right? I'm not asking for the world to revolve around me, just an accommodation, and only an understanding of what I need to work here.
I see. I'm going to have a discussion with HR. They will be in touch with you soon. In the meantime, please send me the work you've done. I'll assign it to another employee.
Neurodivergence, a term known by so many and yet understood by so few. Autism, ADHD, neurodivergence has become so stigmatized in our society that our communities alienate those who are labeled, and, what's worse, our neurodivergent professionals opt to suffer in unforgiving work environments instead of asking for assistance or accommodations. Industry, you are founded on the principles of advancement and progress, and yet you hold on to inappropriate and archaic work practices far too often when it comes to accommodating neurodivergent staff members. These professionals are amazing at what they do and could help this industry go above and beyond its current standards if we only listened and provided them with a proper work environment. Neurodivergent professionals. The world is changing. It is becoming far more aware and accommodating of what you need to thrive in our society. Take courage to speak for what you need, and know that, with cordial advocacy and proper courtesy, we are listening. Thank you for what you do in this industry, for your strength, and importantly, for what you are forging right now for generations of neurodivergent professionals to come. Welcome to CRPN Central, the official podcast of the Clinical Research Payment Network. I'm your host, Dr. Daniel Fox. CRPN Central discusses the real issues with our clinical research industry to explore and identify mutually beneficial solutions for all of our stakeholders. We work in an industry dedicated to advancing healthcare for our society and to embracing diversity, equity, and inclusion for every trial participant that we serve. Ironically, the clinical research industry tends to have an intolerance to the same neurodivergent professionals who work diligently to advance our clinical trials. In an industry that focuses so closely on DEI for our trial participants, how do we create a working professional environment that accommodates our neurodivergent clinical research professionals? Today, we will discuss neurodivergent professionals in the clinical research industry, defined as the professional experiences of individuals different in mental or neurological function for what is considered to be typical or normal in an economy dedicated to the comprehensive study of the safety and effectiveness of new and advanced medical technology in patient care. Today's show will be a little different. We will discuss with a single neurodivergent professional guest who works in the clinical trials industry. Due to the sensitive nature of this story, our guest's experiences, and our guest's request, they will remain anonymous today, and their voice will be de-identified to protect their identity. We will reconvene after our interview and perhaps identify potential solutions we may adopt as an industry to be more inclusive for our neurodiverse professionals in the clinical trials industry. Today's guest has worked in the CRO environment for many years. This particular individual has worked for many of our industry's largest CRO organizations across numerous departments. It takes a great deal of strength to speak to these experiences, and I'm so very thankful they are taking the time to speak with us today. Please welcome with me an anonymous neurodivergent professional. Thank you so much for coming on to CRPN Central today.
I'm really happy to be here and really honored that I was invited. So thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. Would you be willing to introduce yourself to the audience, but we can keep it anonymous?
For most of my career, I've worked for CROs, tons of studies that I have to and I had to manage at the same time within my functional areas. I'm happy that at least I can see every day and I can feel like what we do is changing things, even though you do have to really many times just suck it up because you cannot change the world. You may try, and as neurodivergents, we have this very strong sense of justice. If you see all the stuff that's happening and everything in you is just, oh my god, why are we doing this? If you're in certain positions, sometimes you cannot even voice it. You say something and they tell you, oh, there's no budget for that, or, that's how we do things, and better done than perfect and not done. Sometimes it's just going through the motions for most of the people that I've seen.
So I could only imagine if you've spent almost a decade in the CRO world and then looking at some of the inefficiencies of the CROs as a neurodivergent professional, that would be so frustrating.
It is. With what I do, I know that I don't have the budget to dig deeper and to fix it and to get to all the people who can provide me with the answer and push things, but I do it anyway. It's not great because it leads to a lot of overtime that is obviously unpaid, but at least at the end of the day, I'm happy that I fixed this, I solved this, I didn't just push something because it had to be done, but I actually provided quality. And I think this lack of quality is something that's the biggest frustration for me. It's like managing around 20 at my worst time, I had 34 studies.
Oh my gosh, that's so much work.
Yes, some people, it's very automatic for them. They just treat it as like a job with the checklists and have no true involvement with the studies. Whereas, I like to know everything about the indication, about the patients, about the patient burden, especially.
Today's topic is neurodivergent professionals, specifically the experience of the professionals who are working right now in the clinical research industry. I'm going to ask you a few questions so that maybe we can identify some ways that we can try to help the professional experience of our neurodiverse professionals in the clinical research industry.
Got it.
We are making this anonymous for a reason. What do you think would happen in the event that someone found out that you were a neurodivergent professional?
It can go two ways. First of all, people would start perceiving me through the preconceived notions of what autism and ADHD is, and a lot of bad stereotypes. I would imagine that I would be treated differently. I cannot be really relied on, or that maybe what I do isn't good because autism or ADHD may be associated with some issues with focus or maybe some cognitive disabilities. I'm just talking about stereotypes, right? Scatterbrain, or I think people would be reluctant to give me some tasks or making me pass a manager or at the top of the department or entrusting me with many things that, I was able to do and I did happily and actually excel at it. But I think that this wouldn't matter because people would be looking through those stereotypes. On the other hand, I think that my superior would be micromanaging me more, not also trusting that I can remember that we have all those checklists and tasks and things that have to be done on time, that I can actually do it properly. And also, all these years I've been working for companies, and every time I was applying, especially in the last few years, there was the part of this online application process where there were questions about ADHD, autism, because it is considered a disability. It was telling me this official notice in the application process that I'm being protected. It doesn't hold any water. So I do have an official diagnosis, and it doesn't mean anything to anyone. All those big companies, they like to look good on paper. They are boasting how they are best company for women or best company to work for, and they do have all those internal networks. I think I attended 2 of those meetings, and there was absolutely nothing. No actions, just talking, 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 because I think that the company has to show that they support this kind of initiatives. They let people meet once in 3 months, once in 4 months, and nothing comes out of it. And when I reach out and help with this or that, I didn't even get a reply because this is just a front.
As a neurodivergent professional in these environments, could you walk me through any of your experiences or challenges that you have on your day-to-day basis?
I think the biggest challenge, as I also said before, is like this sense of injustice, but also the inconsistencies that are hard for me to internalize and fathom. One of our goals, we have to be super customer centric, and I actually got in so much trouble for being customer centric, trying to help provide the quality and everything, that I was just one step from putting me on an improvement plan.
Oh my gosh, for customer centric?
Yes, for being too much customer centric.
How do you become too customer centric?
The CROs rely heavily on budgets, and each task has a specific price tag to it, and each task has a certain estimate on the hours it will take. When I saw that there are so many issues with data or things are not working, I did too much. This is the inconsistency that I see a lot, and also on other studies, especially some studies that I get, they're very old, and I see things that haven't been done properly. I really, really want not to perpetuate these errors, but digging through 2 years of data and findings and communications with sites, it takes a lot. It's really frowned upon that I would like to do that, or to find some workarounds for things that don't work, but we need this. So yes, we can do a workaround, but don't waste time on that. For me, this is consistency. You have to provide quality work and be client-centric, but at the same time you can't, because we are not budgeted for that.
Sounds like a big gray area where they tell you one thing and then they expect another, and it can get very confusing if you're told, here are the rules, by the way, don't follow the rules.
Yeah, for me as a neurodivergent, this is one of the worst things. There's so much confusion, and I try to do me and do the work that I can sign my name under. And so even if I have to do it on my own time, I do it. But at the same time, I get all this not really nice feedback, and I did something I should have just say we cannot do it or follow the standards or not dig deeper.
How in the world do you survive in an environment like that as a neurodivergent?
I just love learning things and fixing things. So if I focus on, oh, I need to solve this, I need to check this, and I do it my own way, then I'm all good. When I'm in the moment doing things, it's interesting for me to do that and to find the solution and to find the answers. Even though they give me 4 new studies here, 2 new studies there, I'm like, it's really too much. On the other hand, I'm always treating this like every day you learn something new, and I love learning something new. And it's also meeting new teams. I was actually on a very long client call, and it was so interesting to read the room, to see how people behave, how they interact. It was so different from my other sponsors, so it was actually interesting. Maybe from a neurodivergent perspective, because I've always just observed people and tried to adjust how you have to react properly and mask and what's acceptable.
That can get very interesting if you have the opportunity to control your learning, to really get to sit there and say, this is how I can focus on what I'm doing. It allows me to focus on things, to stay engaged in something, to control what I'm learning, where I'm going, so that even when you have that chaos of 34 different trials, you have something that you can focus on, that you can manage.
Yeah, those 34 trials were a long time ago when I was much younger and could do more physically, because, after the very long day, I just go to sleep.
And every single day is a stressful day as it is, but then also as a neurodivergent, it's like you always have to be on your toes.
There's also other thing. I'm afraid to ask a stupid question, but when I know that this person is the only person who can tell me, then I'm going to ask it, even if it's going to be a VP. I don't care. But most of the time, I don't ask questions. I do very thorough research. While I'm doing this research, I learned so many interesting things on the way about what was happening on the study. I like to also investigate in this way, and in this case, don't ask, because I've always liked to do research on my own, be very self-sufficient. And I remember when I was little, I was going to the library every Saturday, and I was just getting maximum amount of books that they let me take out, because I never could learn from my school books. For me, they didn't have enough information. I couldn't connect the dots properly. I wanted to know more of the background story here. And here is the same. I want to know more what's going on our studies. It really makes a difference. For me, myself, I work based on my standards. So I have to do it my way as much as I can and be satisfied with what I do. I'm going to do my work the same way, whether it's going to be for the sponsor that doesn't care really what we are sending or doing, and for the sponsor that is asking questions. I just want to do it good.
That's like your quality standard. You have an internal quality standard, like a structure that you need to follow for what is right to do a good job.
One of the other challenges for neurodivergent is who their line manager is. Now, I have a line manager that I really don't get the communication style. It's also full of inconsistencies. It's very hard for me to communicate anything, because I know that I'm going to say something or explain something, and then I'm going to have to explain it 5 times more at different time points, because our managers have too much on their plate. I just keep telling the same things, and then I get different responses, or then I get blamed for something that I already said a while back. It's very hard for me, because I feel like I'm being blamed a lot for stuff that I've already shared this, I've already asked for this, I've already explained this, and suddenly now is a problem, or random questions throughout the day that keep me on my toes, because I never know what now. So it's very hard. And in the previous company, I had managers who were totally absent. They didn't read emails, didn't read Teams messages, they didn't approve stuff. And I had multiple managers in a very short time, and none of them was responsive. I was okay, because I was really given a lot of autonomy on my studies. I had a lot of client meetings, a lot of presenting, a lot of sharing, really talking about something that I'm passionate about, and really learning from great medical directors. I was happy because I was learning, I was doing fun stuff, and there was no one there who was berating me daily. And I would prefer that. I would prefer to have an absent manager to just have this autonomy, whereas being micromanaged and blamed, with that, you even feel this injustice more, because you're doing your best, you're working crazy hours, you're trying to deliver quality, and then you hear this was bad. And sometimes these are very stupid things that don't really mean anything to anyone, to the study, nothing. Everything on the study is great, everything is documented, TMF, as it should be, and everything is top notch. But some stupid other stuff that's related to just the way that someone wants to see things organized around on our internal thing that nobody looks at, and it doesn't bear any significance to the trial. So that's the most important thing that you have to deal with right now, and spend 2 hours reorganizing it.
It's like the little petty things. They're just petty.
Yeah, very. For things that don't matter, it's really hard to come to terms with it. I really like the days when I don't hear from my line manager.
As a neurodivergent professional in a CRO environment, is there anything that is accepting of being neurodivergent, or anything that helps at all?
That's a tough question, because I think on the outside there is nothing. You are crashed with impossible workload, and you have to follow so many guidelines and checklists and internal things that don't make sense. And everything is deliverables, deadlines, and boom, boom, boom. You have to be fast. You have to just tick off the boxes. I'm trying to see positive side of it. So the fact that I'm exposed to so many cutting edge studies, I'm working with the sponsors and really big companies. I would have never thought that I'm going to be working with so many big names on the trials that are really worldwide. I really like the learning part of my job, and also the fact that I have access to everything. I can see how other things were done and I can learn from it. It's really helpful then when I'm talking with the clients during the calls and I'm trying to tell them why I did this a certain way or why we should do things a certain way, because I see what happened on other studies, because I can go to the dashboards, I can go through all the documents and other studies, and for me this is being in a candy shop for a child, but for me it's more like being in a very fun library. We also have some very nice therapeutic areas, e-learnings recorded by the medical doctors, so I can really learn from the people that had on-site experience with the patients. That was the best part for me when I was working in the previous company, where the medical directors that I worked on a few studies at one time, because there were like a full programs that the sponsors wanted us to manage. And these were people who either still have work in their own clinics or have previously worked for many years in the hospitals. And they told us, these patients, they have problems with this and they won't be able to do this. And we shouldn't burden them with this. It was really amazing to hear this true clinical perspective. This is something that's still keeping me in this industry because it's extremely interesting for me. Considering all the things, it's still like a very big plus.
As confusing as the rules may be and as bad as the line managers may be, you're always going to have something new and innovative to learn, especially in the clinical research industry.
There is no boring day here. I've never been bored a single day working in clinical trials.
How do you think we can create a working environment that accommodates our neurodivergent professionals in the clinical research industry?
First and foremost, we need to start with awareness, making people aware that neurotypicals, what neurodivergent is, and deal with all the misconceptions and stereotypes, but not in a 1 hour training or something that everyone will be multitasking during and they will not get anything from it. More like a team building activities that play on the strengths of neurodivergence that would show neurotypicals that there are some very good sides of it. Don't just focus that we cannot focus or pay attention, or just don't go with the stereotypes. And I would do this kind of team building activities, but also especially for the line managers to really provide some more extensive training. I know that there are so many voices right now and books, and even the companies, they hire those speakers, and this could be a great opportunity for the company to actually get a perspective from someone who is not afraid to talk about it and, like can share some good ideas about how actually the department, the line manager can help neurodivergent folks. One other thing that's actually helping me as a neurodivergent person is that I no longer have to be in the office. More than half of my career I spent daily at the office, which is really exhausting physically, but also many times when I had day-long calls and a lot of them on camera, that was exhausting too. But now I'm still working at home and I don't have to use my camera, so that's at least one thing less that I have to spend my, let's say, mental energy on. That's an advantage, and I think that's an advantage that we all know that was created by COVID, but now many companies are firing people if they don't want to go back to the office, so I'm grateful that I'm still at the company that doesn't care where I am, as long as I do my job, and they don't even want me on camera, so that's even better, and I'm just doing my job and I don't have to worry about that.
That sounds like a really good combination. When you mentioned about awareness, about training, about people paying attention, the first step is awareness, but then the second step is acceptance. In the very beginning, when you were talking about the fear of how people might perceive you if they identified you as neurodivergent, that is a level of acceptance that even on a professional level, we still have to work closer toward.
Yeah, and that's not going to be easy. That's why I thought that at least if we had something more tangible, some building activities, and I know they can be done online. Many times they hired the outside teams to organize some escape rooms for us that were online, and we were divided. And every time I was in a different team, and I was getting to know people that I have never even talked before from my department. And it was also nice to see who's good at what, who's gonna solve this or notice this first. first, we have team members in so many areas of the world on different continents. It would be hard, and I know that team building can be done online and it can be done in a good way that actually makes you play on the neurodivergent strengths, and also people get to know each other more and be in more relaxed environment. So why not use this?
If I were to hand you the microphone right now without a camera, I promise, and say, what would you like to tell the entire industry about our clinical research neurodivergent professionals and how we could better help them in this industry? What would you tell them?
Really play to their strengths. In one company, they saw me for who I am. They saw that I'm extremely good at solving issues, at fixing things, at seeing things in the code just by logic. I know exactly what's going on and I can learn fast and I'm very curious. I need to find why things don't work, and they saw that I'm really good at that, and they said, okay, so we're gonna take all these responsibilities from you, and a lot of them were very boring responsibilities that I absolutely hated. I was very happy that they're taking away the stuff that I was absolutely the worst at, and they gave me more of the tasks and more of the projects that they knew that I'm gonna fix and then improve and design something better, because this is my strength. I was given a really amazing chance to do that, and I wasn't overworked or anything, and for the very first time in my life, somebody in this industry played to my strengths, really. So that was amazing experience, and I wish everyone had that opportunity, and I wish I had this opportunity again.
Play to their strengths, become more aware, accept our neurodivergence for the amazing professionals that they are, and make sure that we as an industry become far more inclusive right now than we have been in our past.
Definitely. I totally agree with that. I would really like the companies to not just boast about how they do it on paper, but actually start acting.
Thank you so much for coming on to CRPN Central and sharing your story. And I can't wait to show this story to the audience.
I'm very happy that you have invited me, and it was a very, very nice chat, and I think very important for all the neurodivergent people who work in the industry.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate it.
Likewise.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
Okay, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Today's guest has worked in the CRO industry for many years. Although problems exist, they are often told not to spend the time to fix them, which triggers a sense of injustice for a neurodivergent professional between inconsistent expectations and delegations. It's frustrating as a neurodivergent to know there's a problem and, at the same time, be mandated not to dig deeper to fix that problem. And there is an inherent fear of being treated differently, punished professionally, micromanaged more, or not being entrusted to tasks if our professional communicates their neurodivergent diagnosis in the workplace. Our neurodivergent guest absolutely loves to fix things and to solve problems, is highly self-sufficient with a love to learn, and holds an internal and consistent high quality standard for every sponsor that they collaborate with. And the management staff is key to successful neurodivergent friendly environments with far more autonomy and far less micromanagement over petty and irrelevant things. And if we allow our neurodivergent professionals an opportunity to work at home, eliminate the inconsistent instructions, raise awareness and acceptance through team building, and play to their strengths, we can build a lasting professional environment that will empower our neurodivergent professionals to do their absolute best in our industry. So, how do we create a working professional environment that accommodates our neurodivergent clinical research professionals? Although we had only one guest today, 3 distinct keys to success emerged from our conversation. To promote a neurodivergent friendly working environment, we must focus closely on justice, interest, and acceptance. Communicate clearly the instructions that align completely with the expectations. Play to the strengths of our neurodivergent populations by maintaining levels of interesting problems to be solved, and be aware of the autonomous management and flexible environments that are required to maintain an optimal and productive environment. Combined, if we adopt these strategies in our clinical trial workplaces, we can empower brilliant professionals to help us advance this industry to a new level of diversity, equity, and inclusion in and out of our clinical trials for generations to come. Thank you again for listening to a very inspirational episode for our neurodivergent professionals. Remember, neurodivergents live among us, even if you do not know it. and they often mask themselves simply to live within our society. Be aware and inclusive of their needs, and if you are neurodivergent, please know there are many organizations out there who are fighting for you to have the right to live a happy and inclusive life. Thank you to our anonymous guest for sharing their story today. Thank you to Ellis Hiroki Butterfield and Susan Swonger for volunteering in today's CRP in Short. Finally, thank you to my CRP and Central sponsors for making this podcast possible. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time on CRP and Central.